Hello, and welcome to Let Me Bore You to Sleep. Today is Monday, the 17th of August, 2026. 9 days till I'm 56 years old. 56. The only thing I'm looking forward to this month is what happens 3 days later on Saturday the 29th of August, because it's Moses Atauma is fighting Hrgovic for the, I think it's the IBF World Heavyweight title. That's what I'm looking forward to. And perhaps a bit of rain. A bit of rain. Although I don't know if I really want to be out in the rain. It's much nicer having some coolness, because it's not hot today. I quite like it. So please only listen when you can safely close your eyes. My website is jasonnewland.com. You can find my recordings on all the major podcast apps such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. What's going on there? Stop it. No, the cord to the microphone was moving around. What else? Oh yeah, I also upload my recordings to Instagram and TikTok. I heard a bing. Did you hear a bing then? Bing. Right, I think that was on my laptop. Ing just commented. Oh, this is on my Facebook page about the book that I'm kind of looking at. Ing writes, that introduction sounds very authentic and moving. It's really interesting. Keep it up. Thank you. Maria says, I would be happy, more than happy to buy a copy. Sandy says, I'm so proud of you. Thank you to both of you. Thank you. Autobiography, says Jonathan Jonathan, sorry. And I said, kind of. And what was he replied? Not about hypnosis, but more your journey. I just did a thumbs up, so I hope that explains it. I don't really know what it is, or whether I'll even do it, to be fair, because the problem with things like that is I'm never going to be satisfied with the results. Just because I just think it's very, very difficult to sum up a life in, like 150 pages or whatever, because I wouldn't want to be writing some big, massive, huge book. So to sum up a life in such a small, way, especially when you consider how chatty I am and how much did you hear the ice cream van? I don't even notice it anymore. Well, clearly I noticed it, otherwise I wouldn't have mentioned it, but you know what I mean, it's like background sound. Wow, I tell you what, I don't normally, I'm not showing off, but I created a hypnosis recording, a sleep hypnosis recording this morning, and it took over 3 hours to record. I kept falling asleep while I was doing it, and I ended up with 2 hours and 25 minutes, I think, of recording. after I'd edited it. It took hours to edit, and I'm just in the process of uploading it. I mean, I've uploaded it to one podcast, the main one, but wow, I had to keep repeating myself because I kind of just kept forgetting. I just didn't know where I was, and what have I said? What have I said? Did I say that? Didn't I say that? Kept falling asleep. So editing was difficult because it has to follow through a bit. It has to make some kind of sense. Kind of. But yeah, it's a pretty deep sleep hypnosis session, and I know for a fact when I come to listen to it myself, I won't be able to stay awake. And I can't defy anyone or challenge anyone to stay awake listening to it, because it's not an easy listen. I mean, it's not difficult to listen to, it's not like, it's not like you have to concentrate, but just, I would say it's very, very difficult to listen to it and not fall asleep. Which is kind of what all my recordings are supposed to be, generally. But this was, wow. I was surprised at how difficult. I mean, I was falling asleep while I was editing it, and that doesn't normally happen. So, still got the dog in the background. In fact, I will go and close that window because it's a bit loud, I think, with the window open. So yeah, I just closed the window to try and reduce the woof woof sound. It does. Anyway, I'm not going to talk about the dog. So it's very, 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 very. Where's that air rifle? The weird thing about it is, on the actual recording, it doesn't come up very high, loud, because it's so far away. But I can hear it with my ears, and my ears are better than the microphone at picking it up, if that makes sense. All I can do is hear it, and I find it hard to actually talk over it. Now the owner's shouting to get it to shut up. It's a lovely dog though, but I just don't want all my recordings to be focused around someone else's dog. It's supposed to be about me. Me. I don't know, when did I last do a recording? Was it Saturday? Was it Friday? I don't know. The last time I did a sleep hypnosis recording was the 8th of August. So that's a little while. 1664. So I did Let Me Bore You to Sleep number 1664 on the 14th, which was Friday. So I didn't do a new recording on the 15th, on Saturday or Sunday. What have I been doing? So I looked into the possibility of putting together an app, and this is my idea, okay, and it would be using AI to help me to produce the app. And even after like planning it out, let's have a look. Let me see if I can get the conversation up, and I can kind of read some of it back to you, because I was doing it loud, like talking to it, and it was talking back to me. This is ChatGPT. I still can't say it. ChatGPT. Why couldn't they have given it a better name than that? Just like chatty, or I don't know, something a bit more. The GPT. Anyway, let's have a look. App plan. So I had this quite a long conversation with it about this. So we start talking about the app. My idea is this: have an app like on, the iPhone or Android or whatever, iPad, wherever you use your apps, where you could technically listen to all my recordings. So I'd probably start off just doing the Let Me Bore You to Sleep to start with, but maybe do it so you can also listen to the hypnosis stuff as well. So if I based it just on the Let Me Bore You to Sleep, one of the problems is the amount of recordings I've got. I've got such a huge library, a back library, including all the different versions, the lengths and stuff, which makes it very complicated. So my idea was to upload one recording every time, and then the app could make it to the length that you want. So you could say, if you want it 2 hours, 3 hours, 5 hours, maybe you want it to just go on for an hour and then just, go down, like cut out or phase out. So then I'd have it set up so that my other stuff would continue with it, to make it 10 hours. So it'd do all that for me. I would just upload one recording to the server. And then the music, I thought it'd be good if people could choose the music they want, or AI produces the music, creates the music, the background music that is, to go with the with the recording. So give you the choice of how, and also you can choose the speed of the recording and all those things. And there'd have to be a cost for it, because it would cost an absolute fortune. I didn't realise how much it would cost to get it done, but I went into that, and what did they say? I just want to read this bit out, because that's the bit that got me thinking, ooh. Right. So saying, it's saying to me, basically, to get it going and to get an app developer to to do it would cost anything up to £100,000. So that's like, well, that's not going to happen. But the AI was talking to me and saying, well, one of the things I've got that are probably nearly not no one, but most people don't have, is the back catalogue. Most podcasters or hypnotists or whatever don't have thousands of recordings. So it's kind of, there's the advantage of that. But also I was thinking what I'd quite like to do is, because I've cloned my voice, and the cloning is getting better and better. I use 11 labs, so I've got my voice already done, and it can be improved. You know, they're always improving it. In a few years' time, you probably wouldn't even tell the difference between me talking and the clone. So then that gives the opportunity for people to just say, well, what do you want the recording to be? Relaxation, sleep recording. How long? 2 hours, 10 hours. With music, without music, any particular subject, beach, rainforest, you know, whatever, and then just play around with the you know, like what kind of stuff you want to do. I don't know, I've not really thought about it too much, but you could go like level of hypnoticness or level of deepness. Do you want to include a body scan? Do you know, just click what you want, and then the AI would create that using my voice, which again would cost money every time it was used. You know, every time that system was used, it would cost money. I don't know how much money, and I don't even know if it's possible to do it now. It might well be, but it's out of my knowledge base. Most things are out of my knowledge base, really. That definitely is. But the idea, like using ChatGPT, I thought that they could just build it for me. Build the app, build it. I tell you what I want, and you just build it. I genuinely thought that was what I could do. And I was a little bit wrong, because what I'm trying to put together is a very complicated thing. Even if I didn't go down a road of using my voice, you know, doing the cloned voice, although I think that would open up possibilities, tremendous possibilities in the future. But if I just stuck to my original recordings that I've already done, and I mean, when I was talking about the clone voice, I'm talking about hypnosis recordings for that, not the let me bore you to sleep. That's got to be me. You know, that's got to come from me. Not the only time I would use AI to use my voice, clone voice, for a let me bore you to sleep, is if I didn't have my own voice anymore for whatever reason. Then I would write the script, maybe type it out, and then, you know, use my cloned voice to speak it out loud what I was thinking, if that makes sense. But outside of that, I wouldn't use my cloned voice, you know, for a let me bore you to sleep, you know, talk about a subject. I mean, I guess it could, given all the scripts and all the transcripts that I've done and uploaded. It's got 350 out of 1600 so far. It could probably put together, it's got an idea of me as a person, because I use ChatGPT every day. When it comes to medical stuff, I go on there, and I don't just go by what it says, and you know, then don't go to the doctor. I still, I still go down the correct path. But, I mean, just now, a few hours ago, so my blood test results came back, and I looked at them. I don't know, I think it's Friday. And, yeah, it's Friday. And my blood sugar level was high. And it was the retake test, so because the previous one was high. So I was 54, this time I was 53, so it's a little bit lower, but it was still, I think anything above 48, I do believe, is classed as diabetic. So I'm thinking, what shall I do? What shall I do? So I phoned them up, and they said, "Oh no, don't worry about it. You're with the diabetic nurse now. They'll contact you." And I'm thinking, well, okay, isn't it? I mean, from a human perspective, medical perspective, health perspective, is it quite important that it gets looked at like quite quick? Or maybe I'm not at the level where they need to worry. I don't know. But I'd not received anything from them, and if I hadn't put those results, so basically with ChatGPT, I copied the screen of all the blood test results that I got back, uploaded it to ChatGPT, and it told me exactly what everything meant. And it said, call the doctor about the blood sugar level, which I did. And they seemed less. ChatGPT is more. He cares more about me than my own doctor's surgery. I'm shocked. See, I know not everyone probably is a fan of AI. I say probably. I know people that aren't. It's helped me out so much. The little things. So we had a power. I woke up one morning and there was no lights on. It was the middle of the night. It was like 5 or whatever. No lights on. And I'm like, oh, is it a power cut? I don't know. I don't know what's going on. So I go into the storage room. That's where the meter is, or the power thing where all the different buttons are. There's a technical term for that, but I'm not an electrician. Is it the power board or something? And there's a light in the storage room that actually works, which is weird. I don't know how that works when all the other stuff's cut off. Anyway, I discovered that about 3 years ago. So I was living here for 8 years, fiddling around in the dark with a torch, trying to figure out what's going on the power board and which switches had gone off or whatever. And all I had to do was just turn the light on. It's crazy. I just didn't know. I just figured if all the other lights are off, that's going to be off too. But it wasn't. Anyway, so what I did this time, and there's a new board up, because when they put in the new meter, I think they put a new board up. I don't know why. I think it might be to do with the solar paneling on the roof, because they came in. I think they put some new stuff up then. Anyway, I didn't know what I was looking at. So all I did, right, I took a picture of the board, with all the buttons up, down, whichever. I didn't say anything, but just uploaded it to ChatGPT. Didn't say please help, didn't say the lights are off, nothing. I just uploaded it, and it said exactly what was going on. It said whatever switch is flipped is switched, or flipped, or whatever, and it told me, and it like an arrow and everything said exactly what I had to do, which took a second to like just push one up, and the whole thing came back on. I genuinely didn't know what to do, because they changed the whole board, the whole thing. Because it used to be on the right hand side, and now it's changed, and because I used to have this situation where I could never seem to operate the toaster and the kettle at the same time without tripping a switch. I was like, this is ridiculous. And I didn't know which was doing what. Was it the kettle? Was it the toaster? Was it the fact that maybe it was just that plug? Because I was using the two sockets. It's a two-socket thing on the wall. And here's a question. Why do people in other countries still have those 2-pin sockets? Like plugs, 2-pin plugs that can just fall out. I don't know if they fall out in America but I've been to places where they just literally, they're not tight at all. Here, our plugs are tight. You push them in, they're solid. You know? But those ones, like, it just seems weird. Please sort it out, whoever you are. I wouldn't want one of them. Two thong plugs. Is it 2 plug thongs? Not a thong, you know. Vinny, can you make a bit more noise, please, licking yourself? Thank you. I was so tired making that recording this morning. Genuinely, it fried my mind. It's really hard to focus and fall asleep at the same time and talk. I can't even do a let me boy to sleep when I'm like super tired, because nothing happens. My brain just doesn't function. Yeah, it wasn't very interesting, was it? Some would argue, slightly boring. Slightly boring. Ma. It's strange. You hear the sound he's making. I don't know if you can hear it, but he's giving himself a bath, a strip bath, or whatever you want to call it, a bed bath. And sometimes I'll be here, and I'll do a hypnosis recording, and he's being nice and quiet, and he's just laying on the sofa. So I won't put him into the bedroom, and he starts licking himself, and regardless of whether or not you can hear him, I can hear him, and it's very distracting for me, because it's all I can hear. Literally, apart from my own voice, there's no other sounds until the dog starts barking again. I was like, he's like, it's like, come on, man, really? And no, Vinny, I'm not jealous. No matter how many times you say it, I'm not. There was something I was going to talk about, and I ended up not talking about it on Friday. Was it the doctors? I went to the doctors. It was kind of weird, because I went to the doctors, and this is on Wednesday, I think. Got a taxi there, got a taxi back. Lovely day. It was warm, but it was just quite kind of bit of breeze, you know. It was nice. And went into the supermarket, got a few little bits and bobs as well before getting the taxi back. And Yeah, the nurse said to me, have you been drinking, do you drink enough water? I mean, I don't know. I don't know what enough is. I said, well, I do drink water. Because she was struggling to get a vein from my left arm. And I said, well, I've not ever really had a veiny body, really. Do you know? I've never had those kind of muscles with bulging veins. Just never have. It's not the kind of body I've got. And she ended up doing it in my right arm. And it's really weird because I've got a bruise there still. What is it, Mondays? It's nearly a week. Still got a bit of a bruise. I'm realising that my skin is getting old. I'm going to be... imagine I'm going to end up like being like, I bash myself and I've got a massive bruise. Like, what? Because I've not got to that stage yet. But it looks like a hickey. It looks like someone's giving me a love bite on the inner part of the elbow. Is it the inner elbow? You know, when you close your arm, the opposite to the elbow, the inner arm. Anyway, when I get out of there and I go to the reception because I need to... What do I need to do at the reception? Oh yeah, that's it. Anyway, I'm talking to the receptionist. Or no, actually, I'm waiting for the receptionist. There's two people ahead of me, and I'm looking at her and I'm thinking, she looks familiar. Where do I know her from? And so eventually I walk up. She said, hello, next, please. And I said, you look familiar. Where do I know you from? And she said, yeah, you do as well. And I said, did we used to be married? And she said, no. It turned out she used to work in a supermarket. And I first met her in about 2007, 2008. She used to be in town, and I used to go in there quite regularly. And I was like, wow, crazy. It's a long time ago, isn't it? And yes, so now she works at the doctor's surgery. That story wasn't full of as much. I thought it'd be a bit more exciting than that, you know? When I started out on that story, I thought, yeah, this will go somewhere nice. This'll be worth the wait. This'll be almost... This story will make the recording. In fact, I might even create the title around this particular story. But now I've told it, I don't think it deserves to be part of the title. And I think all the stuff that I remember, or that I did remember from going to the doctors, has almost kind of been forgotten now because I left it too late. I should have talked about it after it happened. I think I did mention it a little bit, but just trying to think back. I mean, Vinny was pretty good. He did howl for, I think, 10 minutes, which is 10 minutes too long, but it was more crying than howling. He just doesn't like being left alone. I'm wondering though that if I leave him in the bedroom, on the bed, he might not be that as bothered as he is me leaving him in the living room, because he loves the bed, he loves going to sleep, and he'd probably just go to sleep for 2 or 3 hours and not even notice I'm not there. Because if I had that door open, he'd probably be in the bedroom now. He loves the bed. Really, really loves the bed. Really, really, really. Do he love the bed? Yeah, he do. I don't know what's going on with the internet at the moment, but it's literally taken absolutely ages to upload my recordings, my new hypnosis recording, and I'm not even sure if it's all been uploaded properly. Has it been? Nope, it hasn't. One still hasn't been uploaded there, and on the other podcast, let's have a look. One, okay, yeah. So only one hasn't uploaded, so it's gone quite well, but it took absolutely yonks and yonks and yonks. So check speed. See, do that again. I went online to try and find. Did I tell you? I'm getting like 18 megabytes. No, that's ridiculous. I phoned up my broadband provider. I think it was Friday, and it turns out that they don't even service this area. I said, what do you mean you don't service this area? I live here. You took me on as a customer like 3-4 years ago. He said, yeah, but if you came in as a new customer and wanted broadband where you live, we'd turn you down. I said, what? That doesn't even make sense. How can you charge me for my broadband? I mean, I'm getting broadband. It's just not very fast. And he said, "Oh, well, we don't have any control over the masts or whatever." So they've got no control. So it's really a case of potluck, whether or not you actually get anything, get a service. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. And he said, yeah, but good thing is, if you want, I can get you a cheaper price. I can get it for you £10 cheaper a month. I said, okay. And he said that'd be a 24 month contract. So you're telling me, because I'm out of contract now, so you're telling me that you wouldn't take new customers on, but you'll give me a new contract for a service that you can't guarantee, that isn't very good. He said, yeah, you got it in one, baby. It's like, really? It does not make any sense at all. So I started going online trying to find a broadband that I could change it. See, what I've done is I brought the broadband, the whatever you call it, the hub, instead of being on my windowsill, I've moved it right near the computer, and it seems to be working better than it did on a windowsill, which doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, maybe it's that huge tree that's blocking the signal. I don't know. All I know is when I'm watching Netflix or YouTube on television, I shouldn't ever get buffering. In fact, I would argue that nobody should ever see the buffering sign, because this isn't dial-up. You know, there was a time when getting 2 megabytes a second was exciting. to be able to, wow, you could actually download a picture in less than a minute. It was exciting stuff. Broadband was still small and very slow, but it was still brilliant compared to dial-up. Because I remember dial-up, you never would have been able to stream movies or anything like that with dial-up. Not the old dial-up anyway. Maybe dial-up still exists, so I don't know. If it does, I'm sure it's a lot better than it used to be. I remember that. Do-do-do-do, doing, doing, doing. I used to love that sound. The sound of success. That I was online and I could explore the world, because I loved the internet. When I first discovered it, I mean, I didn't actually discover the internet, but when I first found out about it, at first I thought, oh, what a pile of crap, because it just didn't interest me. Because I thought, oh, it's just sending emails and like, boring. And so much of it was just text on a screen. But then, I don't know, it caught me in its net. And I became fascinated by it. And then, so like 98, 99... I was watching, I was on the internet a lot, and then 2000 I started actually building websites, so I became even more obsessed. I was obsessed for a while, about a year and a half, and I loved it. And I wish, in a way, I mean, life kind of stopped it from happening, but I wish I could have pursued it maybe, because I loved it so much and I was willing to spend every minute of the day. I imagine I'd have been quite a good employee, even though I didn't have the skills necessarily. I was willing to learn the skills. And I reckon for a lot of employers that dedication is worth a lot, because I lived it. And you know what? I don't talk about this enough, really, but I'm not embarrassed, but when I first started doing insurance, it was my life. It became my life, to the point where I did have a social life as well, but it was with people I worked with. But I actually got to the point where I would go into work early to get more sales. And when I wasn't at work, when I was at home, weekends, stuff like that, I'd be reading sales books, because I had a sales job. So I was reading sales books or listening to sales audio tapes, things like Zig Ziglar and Anthony Robbins, and I just really got into that. But I'd already been listening to those recordings back in the 90s. I'd already been reading sales books from the early 90s. No, in fact, the late 80s. Wow. Because I had this dream, right? I had a dream. When I was about 18, well, I was 18, not about, I was literally 18. The summer of my 18th year, I was a canvasser. So I was knocking on people's doors for a double glazing company. I was in a little team became really good friends with them, and my boss Jeff, he's long gone now, but he used to drive us around, and there was just three of us and my boss, and we would go out for, I think we'd go out about 4:30 till about 7. So we'd probably do about 3 hours, at least, at the most 3 hours a day, 2.5, 3 hours. And I think our basic, I think it was 120 a week. And then we would get paid bonuses for if they got their foot in the door. So I'd get telephone numbers from people and the address and their name from people that were interested in maybe getting some new double glazing or a conservatory or a new front door, that sort of stuff. And it's for a building firm, so they did windows, but they also did other stuff. So that was the job. Our job was to knock on the front doors. They were very specific about that after the event with the back door, but let's not talk about that. And just introduce myself. Hello, my name's Jason. I'm from CNR or CNB or A&L or whatever. Windows double glazing. And I'd like to see an enactment of me, just what I was like back then, because I was quite outgoing during that summer, possibly going through a bit of a manic period, but I was also enjoying myself. And it was the first summer that I'd enjoyed myself as an adult. Well, I hadn't been an adult for long, but so when I was 15, that summer was working. I was kind of like, living on the sofa, so that was a bit of a rubbish summer. 16, so I was working in a chip shop. Then I was 16 summer, working in a chip shop. 17 the summer, again working in the co-op. So I had 3 summers that weren't, particularly great. But my 18th, in 1989, not the whole summer, but part of the summer. Vinny, stop chasing the flies because you're making noise. Don't look at me like, don't. Okay, carry on. Mr. Floppy Ears. Mr. Floppy Ears. The beginning of the summer wasn't great, to be honest, but then I went to Spain. No, France rather. I went to Spain first for the afternoon. Then I went to France for a little while, for 5 or 6 days. And then I got that job as a canvasser for the double glazing. That period of time was really good. I enjoyed myself. Yeah, it was the first memorable summer as an adult. I mean, since I left school. Although I actually did quite like the summer of 1990, because we all got laid off from the canvassing, in about I think it was October, maybe September, October time, and because they decided just to put money into advertising on the radio and stuff. Are you enjoying that, Vinny? So I moved to London and I got a phone call from my friend who was canvassing, my canvassing friend. And he said, "Oh, we've started back again." So this was in, I think, the April of the next year, 1990. And he said, "Just call Jeff up, and because Jeff asked where you were, and you can start back." So I called Jeff up. He said, "Yeah, come back, and you can start Monday." So this was on the Friday evening. Phoned my dad up, and my dad said, "Yeah, you can stay here for a bit." So I moved, because I was earning like £100 a week in a really grotty job, 8 hours a day in a fridge, basically, big fridge. And I was going to be getting paid pretty much twice that, because with the bonuses and stuff, it probably would come up to nearly 200, but at least 150, 160 a week for 3 hours an evening. So 15 hours a week. So for 15 hours a week instead of 40 hours a week, I kind of like, yeah, fair enough. I realised it wasn't necessarily going to be very stable, because, and it's with different companies, not the same company as before. So we were actually canvassing for 3 different companies, and we were all supposed to be out for 6 hours a day for each company. The companies didn't know about each other, if that makes sense. I found out this a bit later on. So we were getting paid for 15 hours when we should have been doing 6 hours a day, 6, 12, 18 hours. We should have been doing 18 hours a day, technically, but we were doing 3 hours a day. But we were quite good, so we got, obviously they must be happy because they were getting sales. So we'd get a bonus if they were able to get into the house to see the potential customer, and if they sold something, then we'd get a bonus as well on top of that. So that was all right. So I enjoyed that summer. In 1990, I decided that I knew that I couldn't rely upon that because of what happened the previous year. It came to an end. No notice last time. It was literally the Friday or Thursday, yeah, we're finished. And that was it. No more money. So I didn't want to really depend upon that. Plus, I had decided I was moving back to London to pursue comedy, even though I just moved away from London. I don't always do things in the right order, to be honest. So then, what I did is I applied for a night shift job in the meter factory where I'd already worked twice before and left twice before without giving any notice, just not turned up. And they still gave me a job. It's just, I didn't think I stood a chance of getting the job. But they did. They gave me the job. And it's night shift, so I could still do the canvassing in the early evening or the late afternoon. So I was doing the canvassing from, I think it was 4 till 7. So I was getting up I was working from 10 in the evening till 6 in the morning. I'd get home 6:30, have my breakfast, go to bed about 7. Yeah, I'd get up about 2, so about 7 hours sleep, maybe 6 hours sleep, 7, and then I'd get picked up at 4 o'clock. and I'd finish at 7, and then I'd go home a couple of hours, and then I'd leave off half an hour before 9:30 to get to the place where I was working. So I did that for, I think, a couple of months, and it was very tiring. It was just work all the time. And so I quit the canvassing. I just couldn't do. I mean, technically the canvassing, I was getting more money from that, in a sense of, the small amount of hours, and what I was getting for just 3 hours a day was really good. But I actually liked the job I had in the factory, because it was night shift, which suited me really well. I liked the people I was working with. I liked the job itself, because I wasn't like lugging about and bending around putting meters in boxes anymore. I was doing more of the technical stuff, like taking meters apart and putting them together, and checking for faults and stuff like that. So I enjoyed that job, and it's very clean, because it was very static free, so it's a very clean environment. And yeah, I do the occasional Saturday morning overtime, if they asked. And I remember I used to, considering I was planning to move back to London, which I did. I moved back in January 1991. I made no plans, no financial plans. I could have saved up thousands of pounds during that year. I wasn't even paying my dad any rent. I know, it's sad, isn't it? I don't think I was, because he was always like, well, just we'll sort it out later, and he wasn't really bothered. So I really could have put away. I could have saved, when I had both the jobs, I probably could have saved £1,000 a month. Not easily, but at least 500 very easily, which is quite a lot of money. We're talking 1990, like 100 years ago. So I think between the two jobs, I must have had, £1,400 coming in, £1,500 a month, because I was getting bonuses for the other one. So I must have, because it was night shift is what I got paid more than a day shift. And then, as so many other things do, it kind of came crashing down, because they decided, and I don't know why, they decided to move me, not just me, I think, basically they reduced the night shift, and I got put on to the double shift, 1 week 6 in the morning till 2 in the afternoon, the next week 2 in the afternoon till 10 in the evening. Now, if I'd had my mouth about me, I would have just asked to have a change, to say, can I please stay on the night shift? I didn't ask. I didn't even, I moaned, but I didn't ask. And I knew as soon as they changed it that I was going to leave. But I didn't want to leave, but I knew, and I was still doing the same job as well. So it's not like they were changing my job, but just doing it during the day. But I knew how I was with getting up early in the morning. It's not easy to do, and to not have that stability. I realised when I was doing the second insurance job that I was kind of okay with different hours, like, you know, as long as it was the same hours every week. So I went through a period when I was working till 9 o'clock every night. I think it was like 1 till 9 every night, every day, Monday to Thursday, and then 9 till 1 on a Friday, and the weekends off. Yeah, it was all weekends off, I think it was. So for me, that was good because it's you know, it was stable. I knew where I was getting up at the same time every day, and that's what I needed. In the same way, I couldn't have done night shift and then day shift, night shift then day shift. It just didn't suit me. Maybe some other people it could suit them, but I needed the same shift pattern every week. And I didn't get that with the insurance jobs either. I mean, luckily I did because I asked to go on to that late shift, you know, finishing at 9, or was it 10? I think it was 9. I asked, and because a lot of people didn't want to do that shift, because it was mainly young men worked there, and they wanted to go out drinking and having fun and whatever. I didn't want to do that, so I was happy to do the 9, finish it in the evening. But all 3 of the insurance jobs, although the hours weren't extremely different, you know, like 6 till 2 and then 2 till 10, wasn't anything quite as bad as that, but it was still, you know, 8 o'clock start and 9 o'clock finish, and various different shifts between that, which is not that different. In fact, there'd be a rota of shifts, and there'd be like 6 different shifts, and no patterns, and every week it'd be different for like 6 weeks, which I found very confusing. So yeah, so I left. I remember because I moved out of my dad's. Actually, my dad moved from where he was living into where he's living now. He's been for a long time. And so I helped him move, and what was I? At the time, I was 20, just turned 20. In fact, I might have still been 19. And it might, I think it was like August time. So around this time. So I lived there for a few weeks, and the plan, I didn't realise what the plan was. The plan was not for me to live there. The plan was for my dad's girlfriend to move in with her kids, which is what happened. But I decided to move anyway, because I wanted to, you know, have my own place, have my own space and stuff. So I moved into it was like this studio apartment, but it was originally what used to be for holiday makers, people that would come on holiday to the beach, and people would stay in there, and I quite liked the room, actually. You know, it's a room. I think it even had a chair to sit in, TV, had a bed, kitchen, bathroom. You know, it's well. In a way, it looked like the inside of a caravan, like one of the nice caravans. But it was upstairs in a building, and I was living there. And a couple of things happened while I was there that kind of yeah, put me off living there. The first thing is I came home from work one day. At this point, I was still doing night shift. And my landlord was all huffy and puffy and overexcited. It's like, what's wrong? He said, I was in bed. So I must have, oh yeah, because I did night shift. So I come home, like, I got home probably 6:30. I think he was waiting for me. And I said, what? He said, I was in bed last night with my wife. About 2 o'clock in the morning, the ceiling caved in on us. And we got soaking wet. And all the plaster came off the ceiling. And I said, yeah, what are you telling me? I didn't say what are you telling me, but I'm thinking like, well, yes, that's nice, but you know, I've got to go and have some breakfast. And he said, it's your fault. I said, what do you mean it's my fault? He said, your tap was running. She'd been in the flat and the tap was running. I said, yeah, but I turned the tap off. If there's a faulty tap, then it's not my fault. So the tap overflowed, and he was going on about suing me, which made me giggle. I mean, how are you going to sue? How are you going to sue me? How's that even? I mean, I was a teenager. I had nothing. Literally, I didn't have any belongings. I had a few clothes. And he was talking about suing me for something that I hadn't done. So he didn't seem to like me anymore after that. He was also very short. Not that that's really relevant, but just reminded me of someone on a TV show that I found a bit weird. But it was a Tales of the Unexpected story. And to add on to that, when they told me at work that my shift was being changed from night shift to moving between, 6 till 2 and then 2 till 10 the following week, I wasn't best pleased, but I went along anyway, went along with it, did it for a couple of weeks, and I just couldn't get out of bed. And I didn't tell them, didn't phone them, nothing. Also, they were in the process of making people redundant. So I just assumed that I was on that list, first in, last in, first out kind of thing, because I'd only been there for a little while. So I thought, that's why they've moved me, because they're going to make me redundant and just kick me out. And I wouldn't have got any redundancy money because I'd only been there since, April. So I just, between that and the shifts, not being able to get out of bed, so I just didn't go in anymore. Which then meant that I didn't have any rent. Which then meant my landlord hassling me for the rent. So I had to get out of there sharpish. And I found somewhere else to live that was cheaper. And I had 2 cleaning jobs building up to Christmas. This December I moved in there, and I think possibly the end of November, maybe beginning of December, maybe November. I was only there for about 5 or 6 weeks. So I was there until the beginning of January. 1991. And so I'm in there, 2 part-time jobs. So I think I'm working 4 hours a day as a cleaner. It's 2 different, one on the office in the docks, and then another one in a supermarket in town. So I'm literally living off a very small amount of money, because the rent was low, but which is lucky for me. It's for like £30 a week, and I probably had about £15 a week for food. But I managed it, you know. It was doable. I did it, and it was fine. And it's weird because in some ways I quite like living there, in a weird way. The room was way too hot because the radiators were always on. So I'd have to, and I was on the ground floor, so I'd open the window up to let the air out. So I had a bit of breeze coming in, but the room was always warm. And my landlady, well, the lady and the man in the room next to me, there was a couple. I got on really well with them, and they would play their music very loud, and they were really into what's his name, Pavarotti. So they kept playing, because at that time Pavarotti it became a superstar all over again. People that never heard of Pavarotti because of the World Cup now knew about Pavarotti. Like, he was, superstar. I mean, it already had been, always was, but this was like on a new level, I think, European wise anyway, or in this country. And I used to moan at them and say, "Can you turn your music down?" And they would. Then they'd turn it up again. But it was never through malice. They were always nice to me. And it was weird because I went to his wedding because he married a different woman, and now he's living with that woman's friend. So I went to his wedding the year before, and they both like to drink, let's put it that way. But at the same time, it didn't really, I don't think they argued a little bit, but they really seemed to love each other, and they were also really friendly to me. Whether they were sober or drunk, I mean, I say whether they were sober, I'm not sure if I ever met them when they were sober, but they were just nice people, and it seemed like, you know, they'd met the person they wanted to be with, which was lovely. But turn the music down. It's very loud at times. But I used to be super sensitive with my old hearing. Any doors slamming, clicking, anything like that used to just, wherever I lived, I used to get a little bit sensitive. I'm not so much now. I mean, not anywhere like I used to be. No. You may not believe me, but it's true. I'm not. I'm much more easygoing than I used to be in the old days. I found out, ironically, when I moved into this house, the last house I lived in before I moved to London, so this is the one, the really hot room and with my neighbours, I was living opposite one of my supervisors, or one of my supervisors from my last job in the factory. And I realised I loved her. And I was back living in the same road as I'd grown up in, like my childhood home from the age of 9 to 15. I was just a little bit further up from where I used to live. And I realised afterwards that she was my friend's sister. So I dated a girl, but it was like friend date, girlfriend, then friend. It's not really. I was at school, but her sister was a fair bit older than her, and me as well. So, but not at that age, a lot older. But by the time I was 19, or I was 20 at this point, she was probably about 24, 25, and not a lot in it really anymore. And she was there with, I went into her house because she had a kid. So I went to her flat upstairs. I realised afterwards that she's still in the same house as she was before. But she's clearly taken it over. It's hers now. She lives there. And I don't know who lives downstairs. Maybe her parents live downstairs. I don't know. So I was up there, and the other supervisor. So basically, there was two supervisors on night shift. Them two ladies. And they were saying, "What happened to you?" I said, "Whoa, well." I figured I was going to get made redundant, so I just didn't come in anymore. And they both said, "No, you weren't." I mean, one of them had been there for a long time. She was like much more senior than the one that I was talking about earlier. And she said, "No, you weren't going to get redundant. We were going to get rid of the old wood, the people that they just turn up and they don't do anything. People that have been there for 20, 30 years. Some of those people will looking to kind of, say goodbye to them." And she was saying, "Oh, but everyone gets on with you. You're well liked and you're cheeky, but we all like you there. So we were surprised when you left." I was like, I didn't ask if I could go back because I thought, you know what? I've been there 3 times. I'd worked 3 times and left 3 times without even telling them. I was lucky to get, the only reason I got back the 2 times after I left was because I was friends. Well, no, the second time I got back. So basically, I started working there in September 1988. Yeah, 1988. That's it, 1988. So I worked, there was 2 factories. I worked in the old factory, but there was a bloke that did the same thing in the new factory, but they did a similar thing to what we were doing. And he was from Liverpool, and he used to come over with another bloke that worked there, and we'd all have a chat. And I got on really well with him. And I think I did overtime a couple of times, and I worked over there with him. So I left there. I don't even remember. Oh, yeah. I left there to go and get a job in a pub. So I started there in September. I left in probably beginning of December. Which, although it was 3 months, that's a heck of a long time for me at the time. 3 months was a long time. So I left when I just needed to do something different. I was bored just putting meters into boxes, electric meters. So it was it was a bit just boring, and I suppose I didn't have a lifestyle outside of work. I didn't have my own flat. I was just living in a little room, and I had no aspirations at all in life. Just no motivation, nothing that I was looking forward to. So I was just working. I'd do loads of overtime. There'd even be a point, which is ironic because a year earlier I was absolutely skint, but there'd be periods that I would have money because I was doing so much overtime. I was getting a nice packet of money at the end of the month, and I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't think to myself, oh, okay, I'll put this as a deposit on a flat and rent a flat somewhere and start building a life. Never even entered my mind to do anything like that. I was just looking around. I went to antique shops thinking, get an old gun or not just something. I didn't know what. I wanted something, but I didn't know what to spend the money on. And because I was living in these tiny little rooms, I couldn't really collect anything. There was no room to put anything. There was a bed, a wardrobe, maybe a chair, and somewhere to put a television. Quite often that would be on the set of drawers, and that'd be it. There'd be no room for books, no room to be collecting albums or anything really. I mean, in reality, I could have got driving lessons, got myself a car, a motorbike. I could have done all that stuff, but didn't even consider it. Didn't even think about it. It was one day at a time. I mean, what I could have done, thinking about it, if I wanted to. Actually, I didn't want to live a life where I just kept leaving my jobs. It just happened to be how things were. But I could have put money aside for those times, so I could just work for 3 months and then have the rest of the year off, or have 6 months off and then get another job, which was usually quite easy back then. So I left the job the first time in the meter factory. I got a job in a chip shop. That really didn't work out very well. And then I left there in a pub. No, did I say chip shop, man? Blimey. I got a job in a pub. I chose to work in a pub. I'd never done it before. I thought it would be fun. I'd meet people, have a social life, maybe get married, None of those things happened. I did meet a future landlord and landlady, so I guess something good came out of it from that aspect. But I did that job, started it probably beginning of December, end of November, and I finished it on New Year's Eve. I left, and I never went back because they were trying to retrain me. They said you have to come in tomorrow, New Year's Day, for retraining because the tills were short again. So pointing the finger at me, and I said no. I've got dinner because I didn't have Christmas dinner because I was working all through Christmas. I said I've got my dinner with my nanny and granddad and my family. So I missed Christmas dinner because I was here. So I'm definitely won't be here tomorrow. And he said, if you don't come in tomorrow, then you haven't got a job. I said, all right then, see ya. And then it turns out he's telling all the regular customers that I was sacked for taking money out of the till. It's like, even I know that it's ridiculous to take money out of a till because the till's going to be short. You have to be cleverer than that. I'm not sure how, because I don't really have that mindset, but you don't, if you put in, you've got, because these were the days when it wasn't sophisticated. You just type in the amount. You'd have to work out the full amount of all the drinks, then type it in. So basically, if you want to steal £10, then instead of putting £20. Oh, how am I going to say it? Yeah, I don't know, but you know, you have to put in half. You'd have to reduce the amount you type in if you're going to take that money. I think. I'll tell you something. In the comedy club, my friend who owned the comedy club, he knew all the tricks, because he used to do them. And one night at the end of the night, 2 in the morning, it'd been a good night, successful, you know, loads of people, and he called everyone to the bar, the front of the bar, and he basically kicked the bin over, the bin that was behind the bar, and he poured it on the floor and started kicking stuff out of the way. And there was loads of pound coins in there. Like loads and loads of pound coins. So the bar person on that particular night was skimming. I don't know how they were doing it, because they weren't putting it into the till, so it wasn't coming out like you could see the till. The till wasn't short. It was doing it some other way with the cash. But my friend was watching everyone, and he watched him do it, and he just let him continue doing it. And I don't know if he called the police or not, or just dealt it in his own way, probably. And he said to me, like, that's why he said the reason he had me working on the door, like, you know, sort of, I'd help out and take money on the door and do some little bits and bobs. He did that because he trusted me. And he said he didn't trust many people. And honestly, it's weird. A thing about it is he'd come in, probably because he'd come and go, because he didn't have to actually work in there, but he was a boss. But he'd be upstairs, or he might go home and he'd come back, and he'd go into the till behind the bar, or he'd take all the money out from the take, you know. So he'd hand me like 2 or 3 grand, and he'd just say, put that in your pocket until we cash up. Just put it in your pocket. That's how much he trusted me. Well, he only did it once, because I took off and I've not seen him again. That was a lovely 2.5 grand, that was. No, but he trusted like that. I remember the first time he did it, I thought, is this a bonus? A pay rise? What is it you want from me? But he used to come because he wanted, I think he just didn't want it all stuck in one place. So yeah, so put it in your pocket. And then he'd only allow me to deal with the door money, to cash it up. So no one else is allowed to touch the door money. It's like, yeah, so it's quite nice being trusted. I quite liked it. I don't think I'd ever been trusted before. Not like that. Actually, that's not totally true. My boss in the chip shop used to trust me to take the money to the bank and put it in. So he'd have like a bag with 5 grand in there or something. And I was living on £7 a week. I can't move on, can I? Move on. It's like 40 years ago. Move on, baby. I can't. I'm trying to. I did get pies. I used to sneak down on a Sunday because I'd have no food. And when we were open, I'd eat because I'd be working. Or even if I wasn't working, I could come in and get food, you know. Whoever was working would give me whatever I wanted. That's just the perk of working in a place, isn't it? If you work in the Wimpy, or if you work in McDonald's, maybe not McDonald's, but I'm thinking they're pretty quite strict. Yeah, there's a lot of people watching you there, I imagine. But if you work in if you work in a kebab shop, you go in on your day off, they're just going to give you a kebab, aren't they, probably? So I always kind of had food kind of generally during the week. Sundays, I'd have my breakfast cereal and I would just have nothing sometimes. And I have to come down, because I had the keys to the building, so I'd come down and go in. And I think one of my favourite things to do was, I didn't turn the fryers on or anything like that. It'd always be just like a microwave. So I'd get stuff that was left over from the day before, like Cornish pasties. I'd perhaps get a couple of them, heat them up, and then if there's any bread rolls left, get some bread rolls, tomato ketchup, maybe a couple of cans of Coke, and that'd be me. And it's, yeah, I mean, it's probably a little bit sneaky, but I needed to eat. And the thing is, I was really good. I know I do probably, maybe I moan a bit too much about the place, and I perhaps don't give it, it doesn't sound like it's a good memory or whatever. But the thing I did like about it, first of all, my boss was a nice bloke. I'm kind of starting to see outside of my own resentment these days. Actually, he was a good person. And he kind of took me under his wing, in a sense. If you think about it, I was left on my own. And he gave me somewhere to live upstairs. I know he was getting 40 quid a week. But then he was probably having to pay out that much anyway. It's probably, you know, because he was renting the shop and renting the flat upstairs. So I was probably just covering the cost of the flat, because he could have rented it out for a lot more than £40 a week. So I don't know. And he taught me how to prepare fish, and he taught me how to, you know, I would say, in my opinion, but we were the best chip shop in town. We did the best chips, and I'd say did the best fish, and I was the best fish fryer, other than maybe him, maybe Paul. There was a bloke called Paul. Why do I remember his name? But I would say I was the best. Apart from my boss, he was better than me, because he'd been doing it a lot longer than me. But I did become good at it. Because, you know, you do anything all day long, you become good at it. Even if it's not useful. Even if it's unhelpful. You know, we become good at what we do, don't we? I'm not saying I'm good at this, but in a sense of yabbering on, yeah, I'm good at just talking. Doesn't mean that what I'm saying is of any use, but it's, you know what I mean. So sitting here, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it's something that's quite easy. And I'm sure there's a lot of people around the world that probably think that this is easy to do and that they'd find it easy. But I reckon a lot of people would be surprised at how difficult it is for them to sit in front of a microphone, no one else about, and I've got little Vinny, but he's not that actively involved in the podcasting process, to be honest. But to have no stimulation. I mean, I suppose I've got the laptop here, so I can look at stuff online, but I mean, quite often I don't even have the laptop on. I'll have it down and I'll just be talking. And I've not really looked at it much at all during this recording. So I'd be interested to find out, but I imagine a lot of people would be surprised that it's not as easy as perhaps it sounds or it seems. I might be wrong, but I've heard a few people in the past say that, like, oh, it'd be easier than they tried it, and like, they just stopped. Anyway, I'm gonna go. Go. So I'm gonna go get ready, take Vinny out for a bit. Then I'm gonna have my din-dins, watch a bit of telly. The dog's barking to say goodbye. Bye everybody. Bye bye. Hope you like the fact that I've been fairly quiet during the recording. Bye. And I'll be back again tomorrow. So take care. Remember to be kind to yourself, because you do deserve to be happy. And be gentle with yourself. You deserve to feel safe. Lots of love. Even Vinny's flapping his ears to say goodbye. See ya. Bye.